No,
Oh,
just a friend for life.
Okay. Thank you for your attendance.
Kurt, could I stop you for a moment?
Yes,
Do you have a microphone at all?
No.
Okay, oh, I thought you was gonna have one, okay.
do I need one?
No, I don't think you will.
I don't think in this space.
Very good.
Okay, a little bit about myself and why I feel qualified to speak on this subject. I am a retired tool and die maker from a jewelry manufacturer and worked at it for 47 years. And my father was a gun collector. All my life, I remember antique guns around. But his interests were pretty eclectic. He had a little of this, a little of that. No Kentucky rifles. He had some old muskets and some Colts and Winchesters and things like that. And then one day, a family friend, and this I must have been 9 or 10 years, brought in a rifle that had been handed down through his family, brought it to my dad's house on Sunday afternoon. And it was a Kentucky. It was the first one I'd ever seen. And I was just really taken with that beautiful maple, and all that brass, and it was just striking. And at that moment, I fell in love with them. Then, of course, on television in that time period, we had all these Davy Crockett, Walt Disney Davy Crockett movies. And of course, that fueled it too. So I became very, very interested in Kentucky rifles. And as time went on and I was out on my own, I started buying a few. I buy a few at gun shows. Nothing special, just some.
How old were you when you bought your first one, anyway?
I must have been about 18 or 19. About the time I got married, but I had a wife that was very supportive. She let me indulge my passion all her life, in fact. I have owned, I'm sure, hundreds of Kentucky rifles that I bought and sold, made all over the country, and have handled hundreds of others. I am the author of a book, a 2-volume set of books titled Gunmakers of Illinois, 1683 to 1900, volumes 1 and 2. Hardbound books published by George Shumway Publishing in York, Pennsylvania. I'm also the sponsor of the Prairie State Long Rifle Show Flyers here, which we've held since 1985. We get participants there from probably at least a dozen states, sometimes more. I'm also a member of the Kentucky Rifle Association, which is the primary collecting group for these guns, and meets in Mars, Pennsylvania, every year. Okay. What is a Kentucky rifle? The term Kentucky rifle is a generic term. Doesn't imply that they were made in Kentucky, though some were. But we'll get to the origin of the name later. But a Kentucky rifle is a uniquely American firearm. It was created by gunsmiths who arrived in the colonies from Germany and Switzerland during the early 1700s. The earliest of these gunsmiths settled southeast of Philadelphia, or southwest, I should say, of Philadelphia and the Bethlehem and Nazareth area. They were Moravians who had previously fled to Germany due to religious persecution in their native country of Moravia, which is now part of the Czech Republic. They were, the religious denomination was called the Unity of Brethren, but They were usually just referred to as Moravians after the tier. They soon set up boring mills and gunsmith shops throughout that part of Pennsylvania and into Virginia and North Carolina. Okay, we're going to leave the subject of Kentucky rifle makers. At the time of the American Revolution, all of the armies of Europe were armed with smoothbore muskets. These were large caliber military weapons, firing a loose-fitting round ball for ease of loading, and intended to be used while fighting in formation, as had been done in Europe from the time of bows and arrows, long before firearms were known. Fighting in formation during the Revolution meant forming into two ranks of men, standing shoulder to shoulder, facing the enemy with a line of file closers in the rear to take the place of men who fell in the front of the formation. The opposing armies faced each other in this manner, advancing until they were about 30 yards from each other, before firing a volley into the enemy ranks. The first rank then fell back to reload, and the second rank stepped forward to fire another volley. Accuracy was less important than rapidity of fire. Loading and firing was all done on command. Both armies attacked and received the attack of the enemy in this manner. They were able to load and fire about 3 times per minute. After exchanging several volleys in this manner, the order came to fix bayonets, and the two armies engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Both the British regulars and the Continental soldiers fought in this manner. The American army had been recruited primarily in the larger cities along the East Coast. These men were familiar with muskets and this style of fighting. Many were armed with British Brown Bess muskets that had been in armories here in the colonies before the war began. These were supplemented with muskets from France and Committee of Safety muskets produced here in the colonies after the war began. Fighting in formation with relatively inaccurate smoothbore muskets was the standard as the war began. A very different alternative would soon arrive on the scene. Back to those German gunsmiths who had become well established in Pennsylvania and neighboring states by the time of the Revolution. The concept of cutting spiral grooves, called rifling, inside gun barrels was well known among the German and Swiss gunsmiths before they arrived here. No one knows who first cut rifling inside a gun barrel. The knowledge that spinning a projectile in flight stabilized it and greatly enhanced accuracy was applied to the fletching on arrows long before firearms came into use. Gaspard Kollner in Vienna, Austria, was rifling gun barrels in 1498. Augustus Cotter in Nuremberg, Germany, was making rifle gun barrels by 1520. Others soon followed. These rifles were labor-intensive as well as time-consuming to make. They were equally time-consuming to load and maintain. The rifling grooves were cut deep, and the lead bullet was the same size as the bore. After the measured charge of black gunpowder was poured down the barrel, the bullet had to be driven down on top of it with a metal rod and mallet. After firing, the inside of the barrel had to be thoroughly cleaned before reloading. The use of such a rifle was mostly limited to wealthy hunters of stag and wild boar in Europe. They were unsuitable for military purposes and also unsuitable for use on the American frontier. It took those German and Swiss gunsmiths who had first settled in Pennsylvania to come up with a better idea. The result was a truly American rifle. Unlike the short, heavy, large caliber rifles used in Central Europe, The rifles made here were longer but lighter, well balanced, and of reduced caliber. Instead of a lead bullet that had to be driven down the barrel, they used a slightly undersized round lead ball wrapped in a greased cloth patch, which could be pushed down the bore with a wooden ramrod. The tight-fitting cloth patch gripped the rifling and provided a gas-tight seal so that no power was lost when the rifle was fired. The long barrel increased the efficiency of the powder charge, which in turn increased velocity. It also provided a longer sighting plane for accurate long-range shots. The side effect was slender, graceful architecture, often embellished with inlays of brass and silver, as well as relief carving. These rifles are today considered American folk art at its finest. Some noted names among these gun makers were Andreas Albrecht, John Schreit, J.P. Beck, Abraham Schweitzer, Jacob Dickert, as well as countless others. Their reputation for long range and fine accuracy soon spread across the frontier. Men who lived in remote settlements clamored to buy them. On the frontier, they became a tool of survival, putting meat on the table and providing protection against large predators and hostile Indians. Each rifle was as individual as the frontiersman who carried it. There was no standard caliber. The maker supplied a bullet mold with each rifle that was matched to that rifle. They were never intended for military use. They could not be fitted with a bayonet and were too slender and delicate to be used as a club if it came to hand-to-hand combat. Another disadvantage of the Kentucky rifle was slow and awkward reloading compared to a musket. The fundamental advantage of these rifles was their fine accuracy and long range. An experienced rifleman could kill a British soldier at 300 yards. 3 football fields. I mean, that's a good distance. Better have good eyesight too. But then the targets were red, so maybe made it a little easier. British Brown Bess musket had hit a barn door accuracy at 60 to 80 yards. These rifles had seen limited use during the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, but were not present in sufficient numbers to make a significant difference. One of the first noted uses of riflemen in the American Revolution began when General Daniel Morgan commanded a company of Western Virginians, not West Virginians. West Virginia didn't exist yet, but a company of Western Virginians in the Beeline March to Boston. They arrived in Boston on August 6, 1775. Virginia Gazette, September 9, 1775, relates that these men gave an exhibition of their skills on their arrival. A man held between his knees a board 5 inches wide, 7 inches long, with a paper bullseye the size of $1. A rifleman at 60 yards without a rest put 8 bullet holes in succession through the bullseye. The same source relates that a company of riflemen gave an exhibition in which, on quick advance, placed their shots in 7-inch targets at 250 yards. Later on, at the Battle of Saratoga Springs, New York, riflemen under Daniel Morgan played a decisive role in British General Burgoyne, leading to Burgoyne's surrender to General Gates on October 17, 1777. One of Morgan's riflemen, probably Timothy Murphy, shot and killed British General Simon Fraser at approximately 300 yards. These riflemen played a strategic role by picking off British officers, demoralizing their troops. Breaking the British chain of command left their soldiers disoriented and vulnerable. Dressed in deerskin hunting shirts, they harassed and attacked the redcoats from dense woods and then vanished. causing considerable fear among the British ranks. Such guerrilla tactics were quite unusual at that time. Like every other improvement in weaponry, from the longbow to the atomic bomb, the rifle was denounced as barbaric and uncivilized by the side that didn't have them. Riflemen were used in conjunction with conventional troops in a number of battles and skirmishes throughout the war. Riflemen serving under General Daniel Morgan would again play a decisive role in the Battle of Cowpens in January of 1781. The victory of the Continental Army at Cowpens resulted in the near total destruction of Tarleton's British forces. The only major battle in which the entire American force was armed with long rifles was the Battle of Kings Mountain. A force of around 1,000 British loyalists under the command of Major Patrick Ferguson, knowing that Patriot forces were fast approaching, had entrenched themselves on top of Kings Mountain, right near the North Carolina-South Carolina line. Ferguson had often proclaimed his disdain for these mongrels who had settled west of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which was forbidden by the Crown. A large number of these over-mountain men who were about to engage Ferguson's army in battle had come from that very region, along the Watauga River in now what is eastern Tennessee. They were mostly of Scotch-Irish descent, and their hatred of the British was generational. Their woodland skills and marksmanship with the long rifle were second to none. Led by Isaac Shelby and John Sevier, they were joined by 400 Virginians led by Colonel William Campbell. They totaled just over 1,000 men, all frontiersmen, all armed with long rifles. Although the British loyalists held the high ground, the slopes were heavily wooded, providing cover for the Patriot riflemen. About an hour into the battle, the Blackswood sharpshooters had taken a devastating toll on the British loyalists. Major Ferguson was killed by a Patriot sharpshooter. British loyalist casualties totaled 157 dead and 163 so badly wounded that they were left on the field. 698 were captured. Patriot casualties totaled 28 killed and 62 wounded. The loss of Kings Mountain caused British General Cornwallis to abandon his invasion of North Carolina. At one point earlier in the war, a printer in Philadelphia wrote to a friend in London that this province has raised 1,000 riflemen, the worst of whom will put a ball into a man's head at a distance of 150 or 200 yards. Therefore, advise your officers, who shall after come out to America, to settle their affairs in England before their departure. The Kentucky rifle was not only used in the Revolution, but is credited with the resounding defeat of the British several decades later at the Battle of New Orleans, in January of 1850. 2,000 riflemen from Kentucky and Virginia, led by Andrew Jackson, killed over 2,000 of the 7,000 British soldiers who were sent against them, bringing an end to the War of 1812. It was after the Battle of New Orleans that the term Kentucky rifle was first used to describe the American long rifle, because of the men from Kentucky who used them there. The Kentucky rifle, American long rifle, continued to be produced in small shops across the populated areas of the United States and Canada into the 1870s, 100 years after the American Revolution. Those made after about 1840 were no longer flintlocks, they were caplock, also known as a percussion cap rifle. Many of the older flintlock rifles were converted to caplock. There were a number of gunsmith gunmakers producing them here in the Illinois Valley. the 1840 to 1870 period. And that pretty much concludes what I had to say. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I'm awfully ignorant of this. What is the definition of a caliber?
Well, caliber would be in thousands. 45 caliber is 450 thousandths.
Does it, is how the bullet is spun as it goes down the barrel?
Here is a section of a rifle barrel. You can look through it and see the rifle grooves. Hold it up to the light.
Oh, yes. No. Well, you see on television where they talk about different caliber gun. What is the difference between one caliber and another caliber?
Well, it's all in thousandths of an inch. A 22, for example, is 220 thousandths of an inch. A 45 is 450. Now, these rifles, the top one is 54 caliber, 540, just over half inch, 540 thousandths.
So what caliber this is? 45?
That's 45.
So I have a gunsmithing question.
I can also show you. Here is a 54 caliber ball, as this rifle would use.
Oh,
Here is a 69 caliber ball, as one of those British muskets would use. Close to 3/4.
So it is basically the diameter that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
Caliber is
a mile.
thousandths of an inch.
So is that the circumference or the diameter?
That's the diameter.
Oh, this is heavier, so even
Oh, yeah.
it takes more
Yeah,
power.
those guns were inaccurate. If this ever connected with you, it was over. As you can imagine. I mean, that's like getting hit by a locomotive.
So
It's really
the
strange.
barrels.
They go farther, faster and
So if I'm a gunsmith,
Would have thought.
do I cast? Well, is it steel or is it
Iron.
Iron, and so do they have a forge in the shop and
They
they
sure did.
get the raw ore?
No, what they would do, from someone that didn't mine it from the ore, they would get strips of iron called scalps. And they would make a barrel from that. They'd hammer it out flat. And, they'd do whatever thickness they want. Then they would heat that up in the forge and wrap it around a mandrel and lap weld, forge weld it down that seam. And everything was hand hammered.
And so because the mandrel was straight and true, the barrel would be straight and true.
Relatively. After they got done, they would straighten the barrel. The gunsmith would.
What tool? Of course, you heat it to get it malleable.
Well, yeah, but they straightened it cold.
And,
They would.
I mean,
Well-
hammering wouldn't necessarily give it the precision.
No, it wouldn't. But they would forge the basic barrel. Then they put a bowstring down the barrel and sight it. Lay it on the anvil, boom, sight it. And get the barrel straight that way. Then they would bore it with a reamer.
But
It would
for
go ahead.
the rifling.
Well, no. First they had to bore it smooth. They would, because it's rough, it's hammered. They would bore it smooth with a reamer. And then when they got it smooth, they would rifle. Rifling was done at that time with a wooden rifling guide. Passed through an index in the end. The guide was a wooden cylinder, cut with spiral grooves, pulled with a T-handle, and on the other end of it was a rod. The other end of which was the rifling cutter. They kept one groove at a time. And they get one groove cut to, about 12 or 15 thousandths deep. Then they move the index and they cut the next. It was a Probably an all-day job to cut a barrel. Right.
And would it be cold iron? I mean, would they?
Yeah, that-
They wouldn't.
No, well, they rifled them cold. They ringed them cold.
I noticed that some of the barrels are octagon on the outside and some are round. Is that an advantage for making a gun?
Well, the octagon part is, I think a result of how they had to make them, hammering them out of an animal. It was pretty easy to do it that way. I mean, to make flats,
Easier, yeah.
actually easier than making a round barrel. And that was just the style that people liked those octagon barrels.
I was also kind of wondering, what was the weight difference between a musket and a Kentucky rifle? Because some
Well,
of
a Brown
those-
Bess musket was, this was built around a Dutch musket barrel. This is 69 caliber. It's the same size as this ball. But a Brown Bess was a lot heavier than that. It was a big, bulky gun. And these guns would be lighter than a Brown Bess musket and a lot better balanced.
Sometimes you hear on television talk like somebody has just a revolver, not but I think they say it's a 45 caliber. What distinguishes, I mean, the length of a barrel distinguishes a rifle, I think.
Well, yeah, of course, there's some gray areas in between. Yeah, generally, a rifle will have a barrel of probably 18 inches or longer. There are some long barreled pistols. Well, there's people using long barreled pistols for deer hunting today, which is legal in Illinois.
So when the British, they fought in formation, and of course they always had someone reloading behind them, etc. The Kentucky rifles, they just each reloaded their own only, and
And they weren't firing on command either. They didn't fire volleys.
the
No, they-
British was on command.
Oh, yeah.
correct?
Consequently, if you shot a British officer, his men were confused and didn't know what to do because they didn't have anybody giving the commands.
Did they ever run?
Yes. They ran big time at the Battle of New Orleans.
There was a song about it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
when
there
there was
was.
a 1814. I took a little trip.
The music will stick with you.
Yeah.
And they kept running.
Yeah.
Oh, well, never mind. I can't remember the whole song, but yeah, that's right.
Fired once more, and they started running down
To the Gulf of
the
Mexico,
Gulf of Mexico.
but in the US.
Now, if you talk about a revolver, could you contrast a revolver with a rifle?
Well, a revolver as such, that's a type of an action, a repeater. There were revolving rifles, and the revolvers that were this long.
Oh,
Used in the Civil War, there were Colt made revolving rifles that were like that.
I wonder what were they? Caliber were they?
They were,
That must have been tough shooting.
I believe they were 75 caliber, bigger than this ball.
Wow.
Yeah, huge.
B-17 that only had 50 caliber guns on it. The fighting jet had 50 caliber guns on it. That's amazing.
Yeah, there are some disadvantages to a revolving rifle. Putting your hand out here in front of the cylinder, there's some, you get some burns.
They don't eject, do they?
Well, these
A
were,
revolvers don't eject.
well, they do when you're done, break them open or swing them
Yeah.
out. Yeah, they eject, but
Yeah.
not like,
You got-
not as you fire.
not-
And the revolving rifles used in the Civil War were not breech loaders. They were percussion guns that loaded from the front of the cylinder.
I can't imagine how many men lost their lives trying to reload.
Yeah, well, part of it.
Dumb question, but did the British have a lot of success with those formations in previous battles? I mean, why did they?
In Europe,
start
in
such a-
Europe, it was all, they were all
it was so suicidal
equal. Oh, yeah, it was.
to just start shooting at each other as you got
Yes.
closer. You dropped.
That's how they fought. The armies between the different countries in Europe fought for centuries.
I'll never understand.
No, it makes no sense.
Hmm.
It's almost a suicide mission, I would think.
They probably did the same on the seas. They probably kept going, shooting and
Oh, yeah,
in
these
formation.
wooden
just
ships
kept
would come up alongside each other, fire all the cannon into the other ship. It was just,
even though they were being fired at directly, of course, and then there's, but anyway.
it was brutal. No doubt about it.
I find it interesting too that the Germans and the Swiss, who would think they actually were engaged in the promotion of the Kentucky rifle. And
Well,
yet that's,
Yeah,
that's who came over here first.
it was all evolving.
Yes.
I mean, traditions of workmanship that manifest themselves in
Yeah,
different ways.
yeah.
I think on another program we were watching, it's that because of their receptivity to refugees, many skilled Huguenot craftsmen went to Switzerland and they said set up their watchmaking. But I suppose some of the skilled craftsmen
Sure.
could work with weapons.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, and many did.
it's like the swirling dynamics of demographics manifest themselves in many ways.
And all of
Kentucky
these
rifles is one of them.
Yeah, all of these things were made by hand in those days. The craftsmanship is just amazing, especially when you consider they had no power tools. They were using hand tools and maybe
Blacksmith tools.
Yeah. So like with I'm looking at the trigger mechanism, and is that a pan for powder?
yeah, this is the priming pan. Like
And is it
that's the steel that the flint strikes. Strike a spark.
so I'm not gonna, so when everything's set, this is pulled back to cock.
Yes, and this is back
And
also.
this looks like,
Well, that's what's called double set triggers. The rear one sets it and the front one fires it. It's a little adjusting screw in between.
so you
See?
pull this back, what does this do? Well, I don't wanna touch it, but you touch it, I think that's
Oh,
great.
you can touch it.
Yeah, it's not a problem. That would be in position. Fire.
Sure.
But the flint strikes this, and this goes forward. And
Oh, okay, that's access to the powder.
the powder spark falls into this pan. There's a small hole into the chamber.
Mhm.
And when the powder pan ignites, it ignites the powder in the barrel.
So in foggy or snowy or wintry weather, your powders. So what if does powder automatically enter this chamber from the process of with the ramming and everything?
That happened. Yeah,
Is it supposed to happen?
no, but it's inevitable with.
So what's the first trigger, like a safety?
It's not really a safety.
But you have
The
to.
rear one sets,
By setting me, what's that?
and the front one fires. But,
So setting is like cocking a gun.
well, no, you cock the hammer. Cock, actually, that's where the term comes from.
But what does setting do?
Sets the trigger,
That's the trigger. Okay.
separate from the rest. The adjusting screw allows you to adjust that to real light. So Yeah, set triggers, they still use set triggers in the Olympics. They use rifles with set triggers. Target rifles do it today, a lot of them.
What is an average?
So is that, so that's to prevent an accidental discharge or?
No, it's just to give you control of the triggers. There's no creep in the set trigger. It's just real precise.
So right down there, when you give it the pull you're familiar
You
with,
just look at it hard, it'll go off, yeah, you can adjust it.
So if you don't set it first, what is the result?
Well, on this gun, if you don't set it, it doesn't go off.
Ah.
It has to have the trigger set in order to fire.
How do
I
you
gotta get
aim
this
that?
back down. What's that?
You, do any of these have something? I've seen, of course, your guns, this is your Kentucky guns, I've seen some years that have that ball on it or something that you rest on your shoulder. What is that?
Those are good. They have that big. There's a Germanic target rifle, they're later, mid-19th century. But, I mentioned relief card.
this almost reminds me of leather embossing.
Yes.
So I'm thinking some craftsman during the winter is, I think I'll do the bottom of the rifle too. So in a home situation, would this be mounted vertically against the wall so as to display this?
Well, I doubt if they even thought much about that in those days. It was a tool. It was fancy.
A very elegant tool.
But, yeah, there's that push button.
That is, it's just a little spring.
Yeah, oh, it's got a rod that goes up there, catch. It's attached to it.
So this is just decorative.
Yeah, just a-
Were they all full stock? I noticed the three.
in this time period.
So this has this, is this just superfluous decoration or does that have a functionality?
Well, it's functional. But, this, the rail here is for these fingers. And this finger could go to whichever trigger. it needed to.
So would they kind of make that to the size of their hand? Would they design that to the size of their hand so that they're trigger position?
I don't know that in some rare cases. Castings they use pretty much.
And he was asking, how do you aim them? How did, there's no sight or anything?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a
Real
sight?
fine sights.
Where are
Yeah,
they?
you wanna try? Front sights right there, rear one.
Does it matter if you're right or left-handed?
Oh, that's
You
definitely
can
right.
tell he's shot rifles before.
Well. Here you go, Charles.
I know.
Oh,
I don't know, as I said, this was built by Robert Clapp in South Carolina, probably 25 years.
Mhm.
I don't know that this rifle's ever been fired. It's just the way he built it.
Gee. Never fired?
I don't think so.
so that one's a duplicate. That one's a,
This is styled like a rifle made in the Carolinas.
okay.
It's time group.
So that's not a, like these two are old. That one's newer.
Well, no, the bottom one. The one in the middle here, that was built by J.W. Hart in Marseilles, Illinois in 1979. But it's seen quite a bit of use, that's why it looks old. And it was used in muzzle loading shoots all around.
What kind of,
Say,
what wood is the,
Well, most of them were stocked in Tiger Strike maple. This one is figured cherry, and it was used too, not as much. And this one is walnut. The guns that made the over mountain people, the guns that were made over there, nearly always walnut. There were a number of gunsmithing families in Kentucky and Tennessee. Some very famous makers in eastern Tennessee made some beautiful iron mounted like this has, but the architecture is just superb. And their workmanship, all hand forged parts, beautiful, beautiful.
And the families are still active now, or there are some people who have that lineage that go back to.
Well, most of the people of that lineage are collecting the old ones as they can. But there are people doing this, but I don't know if they're out of the same families. Yeah, there are some very talented. Still making them one at a time by hand.
Do you have a lot of Kentucky rifles at the Long Rifle Show? Any of your guys showing them?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So if somebody flies in, how do they check their baggage? Is there any issues with bringing this on a plane?
I haven't done it.
I'm just thinking that it's the practical, or just make it a point to drive.
A lot of them do. We do have a guy that flies in from the state of Washington. And I think he ships his guns ahead.
Well, it's probably wise.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem. I mean,
Definitely not carry on.
no. Well, you can fly with something like that. I mean, you declare it, and but then you get separated from it. It's in with the cargo.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of guys nervous, especially when it's worth thousands of dollars.
A lot of people that own the gun are nervous, or the baggage handlers are nervous.
Yeah.
That
they
it
would
makes
be.
the owners nervous. Baggage handlers probably don't care that much.
Well, you can always tell what's in a box that has a rifle.
Well, yeah,
It's that or curtain rods. As well as we will.
this would be a fairly heavy curtain rods.
I think you'd have to have a special permit to even have that in your luggage.
Well, you don't want to make arrangements. You can do it, but you have to make some arrangements ahead. And of course, you get charged for everything.
Oh, can I feel that just to see how heavy it is?
Is that the lightest of the three or the heaviest?
This would be the middle one.
Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah, go ahead, pick it up and sight it.
Yeah, go
Aim
ahead.
it.
Put it to your shoulder.
Do you like those sights? Did you like the sights on it when you were at it? Did you like the sights
Well,
on
I
it?
was able to line
Lined them
some
up
red
pretty
coats
good.
up.
Yeah,
It's an imaginative experience.
yeah.
I don't see the sights. For some reason, I find myself going in circles with it, trying to get at the sights view. The last time we went shooting was about 2 years ago, and he and his son only shot with the black powder guns.
Hmm.
And they looked down on me, with my little 380.
So do you take those to a range, or do you go out in the country?
Well, both. I have where I deer hunt. Our families are real close friends. I can go out there anytime and shoot. It's way out in the States. So, and he's got a range set up out there. So, about 150 yards.
Because have you tested the 300-yard
No,
limit
I
you proclaimed?
I have. most modern black powder shooters don't try it at that kind of.
So does that test the resilience of the weapon if you use that? So I imagine you have to vary your charge.
I do.
Did
I
you,
up the powder charge for longer.
did you mention the 600-yard shot?
No, I did. Back in there was a man by the name of Walter Klein. In fact, he was one of the founders of the National Muzzle and Rifle Association, which still holds matches in Indiana. In fact, the range out there is named after him. But he was heavily into this stuff. There was this story that a rifleman had shot an Indian that was allied with the British across a river 600 yards. This was the old story. Some believed it, some didn't. And it was argued quite a lot. So Walter Klein took a Revolutionary War period rifle and with a group of witnesses, he called them people. He placed 4 out of 10 shots in the main size silhouette, 600 yards. I measured 600 yards. And all the others were close. So yeah, it's possible. You'd have to really know your rifle.
Yeah, I'm mentally laying out 6 football fields.
Yeah.
End zone's not included.
How in the world do you even see that?
How
That's
do you?
right. I mean, the Earth's curvature would keep everything at 600.
Right.
That'd be one thing. Things that you really, that you can think about, but it's hard to be precise.
Well, that's where that 54 caliber ball, that's pretty good in the wind.
Mhm.
A smaller caliber. This gun right here is 32 caliber. And real accurate within, say, 150 yards, but wind would blow around quite a lot. And for real long range shots, it just doesn't have, well, velocity times mass. It's a little tiny ball.
Very interesting. I'm thinking, what questions would I regret not asking? What question should we be asking? What's left in your repertoire that we need to know?
Oh, I don't know. There could be so many.
So let's see, this is about the revolution. I think were there any other instances in the revolution not covered in your presentation?
Oh, certainly, yes. But the major battles, I mentioned, they were used in a lot of minor battles and skirmishes throughout the war.
And we saw on the last episode of the Ken Burns Revolution, there were like hundreds of skirmishes in South Carolina, so which I presume those were factors in many of them.
Yeah, they would have been.
Which makes me think, as they said at Kings Mountain, Ferguson was the only Englishman killed, and everybody else was royalists. So I would think if they wouldn't be local, would there be a lot of Kentucky rifles or a portion of Kentucky rifles there are? So that would be like culturally being blinded to the advantages all around it.
Yeah, that would be a good way to put it. Cultural
Instead, all
blindness.
they did was warn them ahead to make them to be right with God before they came over here because they were probably going to get killed. Instead of updating their own methods, they told them to be prepared to die.
Rifles could not be mass produced until the Industrial Revolution.
And how the cannons at some point did they become rifled earlier than the individual armament? In the Civil War, they had rifle.
They were using
because a howitzer, by definition, a rifle.
Yes.
So, and that would have been name-wise with German, I'm presuming. So it's so the artillery followed the Kentucky rifle example.
Well, sort of, yeah.
That's very interesting.
I mean, the Mexican War, 1840s, was fought with smoothbore muskets. Unless you're counting the Battle of the Alamo, and that was with these.
Oh, but so that's interesting that the U.S. wouldn't learn their own lessons.
Well, like I say, though, the technology wasn't there to mass.
So when did technology catch up to the innovative way? When did the rifle?
Late 1850s. Well, mid 1850s.
I was reading that during the Civil War, sometimes they were so short of rifles, they would go into homes and take their rifles.
The Confederates certainly
Yeah.
did.
So I remember there were some mounted cavalry units, was it Winchesters? That they were modern rapid fire,
Well, there was, during the Civil War, there was
a lot of innovation.
all kinds of things. The Henry rifle.
I don't remember, I just
Yeah,
remember the
that-
idea that it really upgraded the effectiveness of the troops that got
The
them.
Henrys became Winchester.
Oh, okay.
And prior to the Henry, there was the volcanic. They were lever action also.
Mhm.
But the Henry, as used in the Civil War, they were 44 rimfire. They're pretty small, not much more than a pistol. So yes, they can be. The Confederates called them the damn Yankee gun. They loaded on Sunday and fired all week.
Mhm.
But their range and power was a little limited. There were some other guns, Spencer's, also a repeater. They had a tubular magazine inside the buttstock. They were 56 caliber. They were pretty potent guns. Actually, between the two, I think I'd rather have the Spencer back then.
I think that brings up, were those issued to cavalry units?
Yes.
So I think, maybe the others were too, but
In
that,
fact, I had a great great grandfather. 12th Illinois Cavalry
terrific.
was with Buford again.
Oh, or I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
Walked. Well, my spouse has a great grandfather who was enlisted man with the 33rd Missouri. Well, he was at the last major battle in Mobile Bay, Spanish Fort.
Yeah.
And he was at Helena on the 4th of July and Helena, Arkansas, and several others. It's like when, and it's great to go to those battlefields and look at those flags. Well, as you know, when you've got a personal connection.
Yeah. I've got a Confederate letter. It was picked up by a Union soldier from Butte, Illinois. That was written to his wife and never mailed from Spanish Fort. Of course, they abandoned everything there and fled.
Well, we've got letters from Spanish Fort.
Really?
And well, we've got about 30 Civil War letters in a safe deposit box someplace. But the first one, he's guarding a bridge in Herman, Missouri,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of fun, and more than fun just to read the history of putting him in context. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's always neat. Yeah, years ago at an auction, I bought a pretty good pile of Civil War items that belonged to a man in the 33rd Illinois Regiment, Butte, Illinois. It was called the Teachers Regiment because a lot of them were teachers. And Henry L. Foster. I have his discharge. I have a lot of personal effects. No guns, but I do have powder flasks for a pistol, and a lot of other little little trinkets. And lo and behold, on the internet, I found the CDV of Henry L. Foster from Butte, Illinois.
A CDV is,
Photograph, card to visit,
oh,
small ones.
Oh,
The very man that I had to buy it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did.
that must have been a thrill.
It was. That was from the Veterans Attic.
Hmm.
He was, I think, in Carolina.
the,
Everything has to be somewhere.
Do you have it in that secretary that was made in Buda? And the picture of the Buda guy and, but that's all right. You must. You
Yeah, I
must
think-
see
maybe I
these
do.
there.
Yeah, I have a walnut plantation secretary, plantation desk. It was made in Butte about 1870 by a cabinet maker that was a Civil War veteran.
Oh.
And that came from a different auction.
oh, so you've got some specific
I
historical,
love that kind of stuff. Attach a local connection, that's great.
Mhm. Okay,
No, if we're done with questions, I would like to thank everyone for joining us. And Kurt will be back next month to do Gun Makers of Illinois. So,
we can find out about the Henry connection.
mhm. And if you'd like, we have all of our programming is in the binder on the table if you'd like.
And he,
I'll need 2 tables next.
Okay.
And,
All right, I'll end the
do you
Zoom.
want a card of his?